What's up, everybody, and welcome back to season 2 of our podcast called The After Talk, where each week we're going to be diving deeper into the sermons that Pastor JJ and Pastor Liz are preaching during our Love, Sex, and Marriage series, where we're going to be talking about relationships, singleness, dating, all the things. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single week and become a permanent part of our Journey Church family. I'm your host, Jaylene.
And I'm your host, Julian, and we're here with Pastor JJ, Pastor Liz.
What's up?
Guys? Good to see you.
Pastor, I am so glad to hear that you
Stop
brushed
it.
your teeth this week.
Stop
I'm
it.
so glad.
So am I.
Praise report.
Stop
I'm
it.
sure you're glad. We have to know.
I have never received so much online onslaught.
We're trying to hold you
And,
accountable.
This is
Relax.
the first time that I'm happy you got all that on set.
Yeah. I was telling her. I was like, so that's what it is.
Did you go to your dentist and ask them?
So while I was preaching, I was like, if you're like a dental hygienist, you could DM me. And so that's exactly what happened. She was like, I go to
They blew it up.
Journey and I'm a dental hygienist. And then they explained it to me, like
Hmm.
using science.
Okay.
Because like it made sense to me. If you get all the food out of your mouth, I just don't understand what I'm brushing in the morning for. I was with mouthwash. If you're just joining us, I would always clean my mouth in the morning. But yeah, brush
Just
your
with
teeth.
mouth.
So I had the whole scientific explanation, and it worked. But thank you for outing me on episode 1, and move forward.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to hear that. But we also had another huge announcement today that we officially closed on our building. Put some emojis in the
Building.
chat, some confetti in the chat. We just want to know,
Praise
what was that like as not just our pastors, because obviously you're the leaders of this house, but as a daughter and son of a God that you love, that you believe in, that you've seen his faithfulness, but like this has been your personal prayer as a
Yeah.
believer
Yeah.
for years. What is it like for you guys to see it come to pass, something you've been believing in for so long?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, like I think I was telling somebody, like I've never seen the Red Sea split. I've never seen manna fall from heaven or the walls of Jericho fall, but this feels pretty close
Yeah, that's good.
in that it was an impossible way forward.
Right.
Impossible, like
Yeah.
impossible, like the
Yeah.
whole backstory, impossible, and somehow God made a way. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just supernatural. It's unbelievable. It's still surreal to even
Yeah.
think about, but to think that we have our own place to make Jesus accessible for generations. That's what
Yeah.
really was about.
good,
A
yeah.
building is about that. It's about reaching not just today, but reaching the children, our children's children. And so I'm pumped. What's it like
Yeah.
for you?
Yeah, just super exciting. I remember when we first stepped into this building, um, I just felt like God saying, and it was for us, it was big for the like amount of people that were coming to the church at the time. And I remember the guy that showed it to us, he was like, do you think you can, fill this building? And I remember you were like, yeah, I think so. But in my, like, we wouldn't with however many people were coming to Journey at the time. But in my spirit, I felt like God in that moment spoke to me, and they're like, and he was like, this is your building. This is going to be your church. These seats are going to be filled and more than one service. And I felt that in my spirit. So it was just a manifestation of that like happening. Yeah, so it's super exciting because it's like I already knew it in my spirit. So whenever the owner was like, don't get comfortable because I'm not selling, I'm like, well, you don't know my God.
Right.
He's gonna do it, and we believe it, and we're just gonna keep doing everything. And that's just like there's a message in that. It's like
Yeah.
you just keep stepping out in faith
Yeah.
and doing what God's called you to do because the promises he's made you, like it's gonna happen.
Yeah. I think it's an encouragement to all of us who feel a dream that God put in our heart. And it's hard to say yes to a dream that you don't know how it's going to go. Like, I trust you, God, but I have no idea how it's going to go. And it's just a testimony to all of us that if you just stay saying yes, one yes at a time,
Yeah.
he really does all the work.
Yeah.
He really takes it further than we ever thought we could go. So thank you for all those who were praying with us, who were believing with us. The online chat was going crazy. Everyone was
Yeah.
so excited
So, we
that
love
even
it.
though they can't be in this building, they're like, well, that's still my church. And I'm
Yeah.
so rejoicing with them.
Yeah.
And so
Come on.
we're so excited. We're so thankful for all that's going to come. I know the best is yet to come. Mhm.
Yeah, it's an amazing testimony, and I'm excited to see where it goes. And
How long you been coming to Journey now? Remind me.
for 3 years.
3 years. So
in
you hear us
person.
talking about it for a long time, even in the
Yeah.
last
Yeah.
3
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
Mhm.
And even from that, it's
Yeah.
amazing, that story. And so excited for what's to come.
Yeah.
And being part of campus launches is amazing, right?
Sure,
'Cause
yeah.
I'm repping for Kissimmee.
Come on,
Sure.
Kissimmee.
And
K-Town.
yeah, K-Town. But we'll send some prayers up for the parking lot now.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Parking lot there's crazy. Oh, our parking lot.
Our parking lot.
Oh yeah, bro.
For
It's
this
coming.
parking lot.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
coming.
yeah.
We'll get there.
Coming.
Awesome. Okay, so week 2,
Yeah.
love, sex, and marriage.
Yeah.
You gave a great word.
Mhm.
I took a lot of notes, which is great. And
I'm
You
sure
know-
your girlfriend
I was literally
is
just gonna
really
say that.
excited that you
Yes.
took notes. She's here
Yes.
today.
I'm always taking
Took
notes.
notes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And she knows.
Come on. We talked about you proposing and stuff like that.
Yeah,
no
yeah.
pressure.
Yeah, no pressure.
You touched on notes about.
He's like, stay on topic.
No, 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 no. We're gonna talk about
She's
that.
right there.
She's right there.
The purpose of marriage,
Yes, sir.
ways to kill selfishness,
Yes.
Yes.
and the golden rule.
Yes.
Last week we started the series with "It's not you, it's me,"
Mhm.
and today it's the hardest part of a relationship: selfishness.
Yeah.
Right. And I love that you said we're all selfish to an extent, which we are.
Mhm.
Right. And you said something that hit for me really hard, and it was egocentric bias is a perception. It seems harder when you're in it.
Yeah.
The first word that came to me was the grass isn't greener on the other side.
Yeah.
The grass is greener where you water it.
Right.
So my first question to you is,
Wow.
how do I love my own grass, whether it's brown and dead? How do I love what's mine?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, and the short answer is that tomorrow is not guaranteed, and that yesterday is gone, and that today is all you have.
Yeah.
But God is He exists outside of time, which is really good because we think of future, we think of past, we think of present, but for God, it all exists
Yeah.
as now. And so there's a lot of names for God. We got Jehovah Jireh, my provider, Jehovah Rapha, God our healer, Jehovah Shalom, God our peace. But there's one name that we don't hear a lot, but Jehovah Shammah. And Shammah means here.
Mhm.
I love that one of the names of God, like the core names of God, is the God of here.
It's really good. Yeah.
Right now. This is where he reigns. This is where he rules. And so to think that where you are standing right now is holy ground, that God is on this,
Yes.
and not to imagine a future like where God is there. No, God is here right now. I think I preached a message last year called On the Way. And I was talking about most people who are here look at over there and they think when I get there,
Yeah.
then I'll be happy.
Yeah.
But then when they finally get there changes its name
Yeah.
into here.
Mhm.
So if you're not happy here,
Yeah.
when you get there, you won't be happy because then there
That's true.
becomes here. And so the trick is learning to be happy here,
Mhm.
no matter where here is. And just knowing that every season has a purpose. And so, like I was talking about singleness and the purpose of singleness and the purpose of relationships. Every step and stage of your life has a divine reason for being. There's something that God is trying to develop in you and produce in you, and you got to embrace it. I think if you embrace it, if you don't embrace it, you're either gonna go on without it, and that's gonna affect, or like a good teacher, God will hold you back a grade
Yeah.
until you get it.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes God wants to move us on, but he's like, I can't move you on right now because you haven't learned the lesson that I'm trying to teach you right here. So God, show me here, be here. I wanna know what I'm supposed to know now. I want to miss it. I
Yeah.
wanna miss it.
Yeah, that's really good. When I think about that and you're talking, I think about parenting because our boys are now, one of them's a teenager, the other one's about to be a teenager. And there's so many parents who are like, oh my gosh, how is it like having a teenager? Or parents are afraid of having teenagers. And I remember like when my oldest stepped into being a teenager, I thought, I'm not going to have that thought process because every stage and season of my children's lives have challenges, but
Yeah.
also like rewards. And
Yeah.
so when they were babies, they were cute and they didn't talk back to you.
Mm.
You had to change your diaper,
Yeah.
but they didn't talk back to you. But now that they're older and they use the bathroom on their own, but like we get to do fun stuff with them,
Right.
like we see them grow up. Like I got to see my son like dominate in jujitsu and like take this kid down, and he was so excited, and see him step into the things that God has called him to do. And so like what does that have to do with relationships? Like you need to just be present
Mm.
in the moment
Yeah.
and like just appreciate everything for what it is now, not always just looking at the future and what it can be, or looking at the challenge now and being like, "Oh my God, this sucks. Like what I'm going through right now in this relationship sucks." Like just cherish it now. Like like we always talk about maybe not just being okay with where you at because you have to progress, fine, but also cherish what you have now and work on yourself. Like he's been talking about, like work on yourself. Don't always focus on the other person, how they could be better.
Yeah, that's good. You were talking about that illustration, like the three-legged race, and how it's like a give and take. But you were telling us it's actually give after give after give. But I can imagine someone on the other side saying, "But I have been giving and giving and giving, and it feels like I've been giving." So I tied to his question: How long do I water my grass until I see growth? Like, how long do I put fertilizer on this thing? I'm the only one who's doing it right now. Like, what about that person who's tired and weary of the giving?
This is gonna sound really insensitive and really, and then also like it's so nuanced, right? Like
Yeah.
there are people in relationships who are being. So if two people are selfless, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
If no one is selfless and both people are selfish, it's brutal. If one person is selfish and the other person is selfless, it's abusive.
Hmm.
So there can exist a type of relationship where there's almost like an emotional abuse that's taking place, where someone is constantly taking advantage. And I want to provide nuance to that. If you are being physically assaulted, if you are being verbally and emotionally tormented and tortured, and if someone is cheating on you, like God gives, and I'm also speaking of marriage, not dating. God gives us exit ramps. God tells us when we can leave off of relationships when we're married. When we're dating, leave. If you're dating, be gone. You got a selfish person who's not giving back, get on out.
Yeah.
Find you somebody who's not gonna be as selfish, because we're all a little selfish. But like I was saying in the sermon, there are levels to this. But when you are married, it's just such a holy covenant. And I think this is the part that's gonna sound insensitive. Your question, Jaylene, was, what if I keep giving and I'm not getting anything back, and I'm keep giving and I'm not getting anything back? I would say that the question itself is flawed
Yeah.
because
It's selfish.
it's selfish,
Yeah.
because you're giving to get something back.
Right.
Good.
So the question of itself of how long until I get something back,
Yeah.
change the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good.
Change the question, because that's not it. I'm giving if I never get back.
Right.
It was the
Right.
covenant. It was the vow that I made
Exactly.
when I
That's good.
married you
Yep.
to pour it all
This is
out.
the
And
thing
if
you
you
always
could
say.
never give to me,
Sorry to interrupt. When you're doing weddings, you always say this one thing, that it's a vow, not
it's
a
a vow,
contract.
not a contract.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
A contract is, if you do your part, then
Right.
I will do my
Yeah.
part. That's how banks make sure you pay the mortgage.
Right.
They hold leverage over you. They take the house back if you don't. But marriage is not a contract, although it is symbolized by one on earth. In heaven, it is symbolized by a different document, and that's not a contract, that's a covenant. Covenants are different than contracts, because covenants say, I will do my part even if you don't do your part.
Yeah.
That's
So
good.
the covenant that God made with David and Israel and Abraham, he said there will always be a son of David that sits on
Right.
the throne. Even though a lot of the Israelite kings and the Judean kings disobeyed God and rebelled against God, God brought Christ to fulfill his
Yeah.
covenant.
Yeah.
I made a promise to David
Yeah.
that one of his sons would sit on the throne. Christ will sit on the throne.
Yeah.
That's a covenant. The relationship we have with Christ is a covenant, which
Yeah.
is why marriage is so important, because it's an image of that. God is going to keep loving us no matter what we do. He's going to keep loving us
Yeah.
until we choose to walk away from
Right.
Christ. Christ never walks away from us,
Yeah.
right? And so my answer would be, as insensitive as it sounds, you got to flip the question. It's not even the right question. You have the wrong concept of why you're doing what you're doing, which
Yeah.
goes back to the golden rule. I'm not doing so that. That was something I didn't get to in the message because of time. But the golden rule is do unto others what you want them to do unto you, Matthew. But it's not so that they do
Right.
unto you,
Right.
Yeah.
because then you're going to feel bamboozled.
Right.
When you did something good and they didn't return back,
Mm.
you're going to think the Bible is not doing what the Bible is supposed to do. No, that's not what the verse said. It's not an exchange.
Yeah.
That question is a compass. So that when you're in the middle of a relational decision you got to make, you open up that compass and you go, how would I want to be treated?
Yeah.
How would I want to be? and then you go ahead and you do that thing,
Yeah.
but you don't do it so that
Did
person.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's love, man. You're just pouring out and
Mhm.
pouring out and pouring out and
Mhm.
pouring out and pouring out. And when it's beautiful when the other
Yeah.
person is pouring out and pouring out and pouring out too. But if not, there's still a covenant vow
Right.
there that's
Yeah.
marriage, and which is why we shouldn't enter into marriage so lightly.
Yeah.
Marriage is that. If marriage is that, we ought to be terrified in the
Right.
best sense to get
Yeah.
married, because we understand the weight of this covenant. There's no going back. This is what the three-legged race thing that I was showing is that I don't like the illustration, because then you just untie the knot.
Yeah.
We each
Mhm.
go on our separate ways. That's not what happens.
Mhm.
Divorce is a ripping apart of two people.
Yeah.
It's terrible and it's painful. And ask anybody who's been through a divorce, and they will tell you it is like a part of you is dying, because literally it's what's happening, and not the good part, not the self, not the flesh, but a part of your soul is being ripped and torn. So you shouldn't enter into it lightly,
Yeah.
because you are getting into a covenant relationship with somebody who's saying, I'm going to give no matter what you give.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Mhm.
And there'll be some weeks, I'll say the last thing 'cause I've been talking a lot. There'll be some weeks where you'd be like, all right, I'm going to have to give more. Like, marriage isn't 50-50. Some weeks marriage is 80-20.
Right.
Other weeks marriage is 90-10. There are
Yeah.
days I come home and she's like at a 10. I can tell I got to be a 90.
Yeah.
The boys the boys said something recently.
What?
They were like, you know what I appreciate about you guys? We were like, what? They were like, when mom is crazy, dad is calm.
Yeah. It's true.
They said, thank you guys for being crazy one at a time.
Yes. Because
No
when he's getting
way.
on them, I'm
But-
like,
But
babe,
then when I'm
babe.
getting crazy on
It's the
them,
other way
she's
around.
calm.
Yeah, yeah.
And so what we do is we balance
Yeah,
each
yeah,
other
yeah.
out in that
That's true.
way.
That's
Yeah.
good.
And so you got to give, like, no matter what,
Right.
you know? And then, but it works both ways when you're with
Yeah.
a good relationship, because sometimes you come home and you're a 20 and they get to be a 80
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
kind of help you out. So, but you got to
Yeah.
all go into it with that mindset. I'm not getting anything out of this.
Right.
That's why you can't get married until you're complete.
Yeah.
Because if you're trying to get married to try and get something, what are you going to give?
Yeah.
Mhm.
You got to get in there whole, full, so
Right.
that you can
Right.
go into that relationship. I'm ready to
Yeah.
give, 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 give,
Yeah.
give, 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 give.
Yeah.
Getting is, we'll see what happens, but I'm here to give, 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 give,
Right.
give, give, give. Do I like it when I get? Heck yeah.
Mhm.
Amen. It feels good,
Mhm.
but I'm not here to get. I'm here to
Yeah.
give.
It's.
Sorry,
I think
spoke a
it's
lot.
funny that we started out talking about the building and what does this have to do with this? We started out talking about how we just kept in faith watering and watering and watering, even when the owner was like, no, it's not
Yeah.
happening. Even when we were like, I don't know how we're gonna come up with the money. So it's the same thing in your relationship. It's like you just keep watering even though you don't see. Like when you
Yeah.
plant a seed, it's like you don't see it. And sometimes for a while. There's some plants, it'll be a long time. Like my son got into gardening. It'll be a long time till he sees anything, but he just
Mhm.
still goes outside and he waters it.
Mhm.
Trust that God's gonna shine a light on it, but like he
Yeah.
just keeps doing it even if you don't see it.
Yeah. And I think when you were talking about like the motivation being getting is such a temporary feeling.
Yeah.
Like once I get, yeah, I'm happy once I got it, but that fades eventually because I'm gonna want something else.
Right.
But anytime when I've spent time with the Lord, like yes, I'm grateful for the healing, I'm grateful for the promises, but the true change is when I'm giving adoration and worship. Like when
Yeah.
I'm just focusing on giving God all of my attention, that's when I'm the most changed, when I'm the most fulfilled. And so I think that that's a good motivator, and why marriage is an image of Christ in the church. God serves us with the chance that we might never love him back, that we might never accept him back.
That's right.
But that doesn't stop him from loving us or
Yeah.
pursuing us or giving us opportunity. I think when we come from that lens, we'll probably be a lot more joyful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
lot
for
more
sure.
happy.
And then the hope is, that person would reciprocate.
Right.
But it's a hope. It's not an expectation.
Yeah.
It's a hope. It's not an expectation. Because that was another thing I talked about in the message. You're not gonna transform somebody through intimidation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But your best shot, if you're ever gonna change somebody, is not gonna be through intimidation. It's gonna be through inspiration.
It's really
It's gonna
good.
be living your life in a way that makes that person go, I want what you got.
Right.
I want what you got. I can see you happy. I can see you joyful. You are breaking my heart in the best way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know if your heart's ever been broken by an act of kindness
Oh, yeah.
or compassion. When
Yeah.
someone does something and you're
Just
like, you
moved.
did what?
Mhm.
And it gets you like, oh, how can I? That was what healed our relationship for my addiction for pornography. What changed me on the inside was not Liz threatening to leave me. It was her promising me she would never leave me,
Mhm.
even though I was hurting her. That broke me.
Mhm.
Where's the anger? Where's the Puerto Rican fire and all of that, which was there in prior
Oh, yeah.
conversations? But thank God I caught her in the middle of a 21 days of
Yeah.
prayer and fasting, so she
Yeah.
was close to the Lord.
Just prayed up.
She was
Yep.
prayed up. And the Holy Spirit was speaking through her. That kind of love and compassion that breaks a person in their heart.
Yeah.
Then you want to be different. So to the person who's in a relationship and it feels like it's one-sided, just keep being selfless. And if they change, awesome. If not, that's not what you signed up for. You signed up
Right.
to give, not to get. But your best shot at seeing them
Yeah.
is selflessness.
Yeah. That's good.
No, that's really good. A word that came to me. First off, so many great notes. I've been taking notes of. You notice while you're talking, because it applies to me. I'm marriage minded,
Sure,
right?
sure,
At
sure.
this
Come on.
time, talking for people that are
Yeah.
single.
Yeah, been
I'm
dating
not
for a
single.
long time. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Jesus died on the cross, and we still have the free will to love him or not.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
So if he did that for us, that question that you said about how long do we water the grass, how long do we love on that person, and
Yeah.
Jesus is gonna love on us forever.
Yeah.
Right.
And some
Yeah.
of us don't come to him
Yeah.
or
Right.
fall out of
Yeah.
love, and. But as someone that is marriage minded, you said singleness is designed to develop our love for God,
Yeah.
right? And you said something really good. If you don't go through the work of learning yourself in single years, your spouse will pay for it or
Yeah.
pay the price.
Yeah.
Do you think our culture rushes people into marriage before they're ready for it?
I actually think the opposite.
Yeah, I was
I
just I was
think
gonna say.
I think our
Oh, wow.
culture
Yes.
tells people that you don't have to get married
Yeah.
Yeah.
because relationship without commitment is freedom,
Mm-hmm.
but relationship without commitment is not love. Love has to be committed. Love has to be locked in. Love has to be sacrifice. And I think that's the real what's really happening in our culture is we're trying to take the sacrifice out of love,
Wow.
and by doing so,
Yeah.
are destroying the definition at its very
Yeah.
core. So when love gets difficult or when love gets hard,
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out because love should not require sacrifice. Love is defined by sacrifice.
Right.
Now, I will say in the church, we can glorify marriage
Yeah.
and demean singleness.
Yeah.
And I would hope that at Journey, people that come to Journey don't feel that way. But in the church, we need to balance the message out. Being married is not harder than being single. Being single is not harder than being married. They're both equally hard and they're both equally blessed. However, if you ask the Apostle Paul, who says, I'm not speaking on behalf of God, he never says this, but he says this one line. And I think he says this one line to differentiate because his words are inspired by the Spirit. But when he says this one line, it's because he knows he's speaking out of egocentric bias. But he's going, I would prefer that you all be single.
Oh, yes.
Because I would prefer that you all be single like me. He says, so that you can give God everything.
Yeah.
Because the reality is when you get married, you can't give God everything. You can't because you have a wife
Yeah.
and you have kids. And I used to feel bad about that until I heard a pastor say, God never calls you to fulfill your potential. God calls you to fulfill your calling.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're a married person, you might not be able to do as much because you're not single anymore. But you're not called to write 10 books and
Yeah.
all that. You're called to be a husband, be a
Yeah.
father. That's your calling. And so it's a little different. But yeah, in church, we need to balance the message. If marriage was all that, then we would be married in heaven. Marriage is great. I love my wife. She loves me. She always jokes like, listen, I know we don't get married in heaven, but I'm going to ask God for your mansion to be next to my mansion. And like, I want to go over and want to hang out, you know? And I just kind of tell her, I'm like, babe, I promise you, when we get there, you are not going to be feeling,
You're gonna be good.
you're going to be
Yeah.
good.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to be so satisfied
Right.
by the presence and the beauty and the joy of God that everything that I kind of was trying to, he's going to do to the nth
Yeah.
degree.
Right.
So we need to remind single people that when we get to heaven, there is no marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And so perfection is not marriage. You can be completely fulfilled and completely
Yeah.
satisfied
That's good.
being single. Completely. I even joked about it today. God must have think the single people, God is like, you got this. Because if God gives a person a partner, he's giving them a helper.
Yeah.
So if God is a single person, God's not bringing a single person a partner. He's like, you got this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're doing real good right now. But for the rest of us, he's like, they need help.
Yeah.
Send them somebody right now. They're not going to make it on their own.
Yeah.
They need a girl. They need a guy.
Good.
But yeah, so I would say in the world, they demean marriage.
Mhm.
But in the church, I think we don't always balance out the message like we ought to, which is singleness. I hear a lot of relationship series and the pastor's like, I pray for proposals and I pray for marriages. And I'm like, that's awesome. Let's also pray for satisfaction
Yeah.
Right.
and contentment
Yeah.
and in being single, because being single is a calling.
Yeah.
It's a high call.
You know, there's some people watching. They're like, I rebuke singleness. But
I always say, like,
the
if you're
season, you
no,
know.
okay, but I always say, like, you would know if you're called for singleness.
Yeah.
If you're like really desiring a person, like really, you might not be called for singleness.
Yeah.
But if you're like, actually, I'm pretty straight, chill, like that, I think God's not. I always say God's not gonna. When He called us to ministry, I always be like, I'll go anywhere, but like Africa or something like that. Like God's not gonna call you to Africa if you don't have a heart for Africa. Like God made you a certain way for a reason. He aligns your heart
Yeah.
with your gifts and your grace. And so all those things are going to be your desires, your gifts, and your grace are all going to be aligned. It's going to be difficult, but it's all going to be aligned. So don't worry. If you don't think you're called to singleness, you're probably not. But if you feel like you might be, you might be. And then time will tell, you know. But don't be rebuking me. All right. I just read the Bible. I didn't write it. I just read it.
Sometimes once you accept that singleness, God will give you the person.
That's true. That's how it
Yeah.
happened with me. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how it
Yeah,
happened with,
it's happened with me.
Pastor Liz.
I have a second part to that question, actually. What kind of work do people often skip in singleness that shows up later in marriage?
Mm.
You want to take it? What kind of work do people do? Skip in
People
singleness.
skip in
That
singleness.
causes consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we touched on it a little bit last week, but maybe your trauma, past trauma that you didn't realize that you're dealing with, because it'll come back up. Like, I
Mhm.
think I shared a little bit last week that we went to therapy for the first time in our marriage, like, that we were like, we can't figure this out on our own. And it was because of my trauma. And it's so dumb because I sat down for dinner with my parents and my sister like a couple weeks ago, and they're joking, and I'm like, no, for real, like I had trauma from that. Like they shared a story, I'm like, I had trauma from that, and I didn't unpack it. Like I needed to go to a therapist, and I needed the therapist to be like, yeah, so because you're a third child in a big family, you know, I had trauma where I felt like no one listened to me. I was a little child that talked a lot, and everyone would tell me to shut up. And so when I got older and I got into a relationship and had kids, when they didn't listen to me, like I would get very upset, like more upset than a mom should. And my therapist was like, you should unpack that. And so you need to like do the work. Like, what trauma do you have in your past that you need to unpack? Like, it's not you, it's me. It's me. I need to figure this out because I don't want to carry that into my relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd add to that. I think it's the work of discovering the beauty of Jesus.
Mhm.
That's a big one. I didn't find that until later in marriage, and that made it really hard. The work of really discovering the beauty of Jesus, where you can be in His presence, you can abide, and you can be like just overwhelmed by His love on a regular basis, knowing where that comes from. I think if you don't do that, then you'll always go into marriage with the kind of questions that Jaylene was asking. What am I going to get? What am I going to
Yeah.
get? What am I going to get? Because you're not fully getting it already. And we really do believe. I know it sounds crazy if you're in your church, but we really do believe Jesus can be everything in your life.
Yeah.
Amen.
You know, and it doesn't mean that you don't need friends. I think we all need community. But we don't all need romance.
Mhm.
There's a difference. I would never preach somebody in the comments were like, well, we need people. And I was like, well, I never said that we didn't need community. We all need community, but we don't all need romance.
Yeah.
So you got to be like good. You got to discover the romance between you and Christ.
Mhm.
The relationship. There's a reason why why we're the bride. He's the groom. Like this
Yeah.
is the language that He
Yeah.
uses. When He comes back, He's coming back for the bride.
Right.
Right? Like this is the language of His second coming. It's a wedding. So, you know, finding that intimacy with Christ, that I think that and that's hard. But that's why singleness feels lonely, so that we can develop that. I would add that to unpacking the trauma, developing skills.
Finding who you are in Christ, like letting
Yeah.
that be your foundation, because you can't let your identity be in your
Yep.
relationship.
Finding your purpose.
I'm not, JJ's wife. Yes, I'm JJ's wife, but I'm a daughter of the King, like
Yeah.
You gotta find your
before anything
you
else.
gotta find your purpose. So like Julian needs to know before he gets married, what does God want to do in my life? Maybe not the micro,
Yeah.
but the macro.
Yeah.
You have to answer because in the person that you're gonna marry, you need to ask them, hey, are you down with where I'm going? Because I feel like I'm going in this direction. And a lot of times we don't do that. Then we fall in love with a person, and then instead of having our own purpose, they become our purpose. So then we follow that person, and we abandon our purpose. And then 10 years later, we You look at the person and we go,
Resent.
you took my opportunity.
Yeah.
I was gonna be, and I could have been,
Yep.
and you took it. No, no, no. They didn't take it.
Yeah.
You forfeited it
Mhm.
when you followed. Find somebody who has the same purpose. We didn't have all the details
Right.
lined up, but I knew really strongly what kind of what God wanted to do in my
Yeah.
life. And I asked her, and I was like,
You
are
were
you
very
down?
clear.
I was
Yeah.
like, this is what I feel like God's
Yeah.
calling me to do, and I don't think we should entertain this if you don't feel the same
Right.
way. She was like, no, I feel the same way. I was
Yeah.
like, cool. I was like, was there anything you wouldn't do? She was like, lead pastor. I was like, same.
God
and
was
so,
like, mhm.
and then, so then we went on like that. But true story.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true. He
I
also
love
said we
that.
were gonna be broke. And
I did
so
say
Oh,
that.
and you were like, I
Yeah.
rebuke
I was
he
that.
was
like,
like,
girl,
be very
I'll
clear.
be very clear.
Yes.
This ministry don't pay a lot of money.
Yeah.
You good with that? She was like, no.
Yeah.
She was like, no. You gotta be
No, I
broke to
said I
serve
don't
Jesus.
receive that. It's not the.
No, I don't receive
Yeah,
that.
I was like,
Yeah.
I know God has more.
That's
Real
funny.
quick, Jaylene, since you brought it up, you talked about purpose, and that's something I was reflecting on last week. Right? You talked about knowing your purpose, right? Where can that cross over into selfish ambition?
Where does knowing your purpose cross over into selfish ambition?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, they don't. Again, I gotta be. Are we talking about a single person or a
Yeah,
married
that's what I was
person?
thinking too.
Fair.
Because if we're single, then you are called to follow the will of God.
Yeah.
If you're married, then something shifts because that spouse becomes your first ministry.
Mhm.
So then I can't sacrifice the health of my spouse to do ministry at
Yeah.
that point, because then I'm abandoning the one that God has called me to protect. Now, I will say there's a place where sin is always the line. Like, what would I not do for my wife? And I would not sin. But when we're talking about purpose, if I'm single, I'm making sure that before I say yes, before I go into covenant, that you and I share the same purpose. Because then I don't have to be selfish because we're both headed in the same direction,
Yes, right.
right? We're both headed in the same direction. I'm not pulling you nowhere, right? Which, to use that example of the walking, I want to make sure that we both want to go that way.
Yeah.
Because if you're a leg and I'm a leg, and I want to go this way and you want to go that way,
Yeah.
we got to figure that out before we decide to become one body.
Right.
But if we decide to become one body and we both want to head that way, boom. But now, if you're married and you're feeling, well, I feel like God's calling me to go this way, if that direction pulls you away from your spouse, that's not God. Because God wouldn't ask you to do that. At that point, she becomes that
Yeah.
ministry. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
really good.
I think that's good. You had mentioned that to me when I first started dating Austin. I went
I
into his
did.
office. I was like having an overthinking day.
Yeah.
I was like, how do I know? Like, that's what everyone wants to know. How do I know? And he was like, all right, tell me your fears. Like, we went down there. But the biggest takeaway that I took from what you shared with me was like, ask even like the things you don't think about. Do you feel called to even this state, to this church, to doing ministry? And every question we were aligned, like
Yeah.
big picture, we were aligned. That made it easier
Yeah.
because you said last week, like, we both stayed in the lanes we were before we
Yeah.
found each other. And that's because we were both chasing Jesus and chasing building the church.
I sat with him too. He wasn't
Oh,
too happy
yeah.
when I sat down with him. But I think I told him, I was like, hey, man, have you ever seen Joyce Meyer's wife?
Oh my
He
gosh.
did not like that.
That messed
Husband.
him up.
So Joyce Meyer's husband. I was like, you ever seen Joyce Meyer's husband? And he's like, nah. I'm like, nah, but she wouldn't be Joyce Myers without her husband.
Mhm.
And I just believe in Jaylene's ministry. And I was like, Jaylene's got a speaking ministry. I was like, are you cool with being, maybe you're not on the pulpit with her, but you're there supporting her, being everything she can be? And he was like, yeah. So he was a little tight that I said it the way I said it, but because I love Austin for so much, I can just bring it out there. But
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure he knew too.
For
You know,
sure.
like y'all both okay. Y'all both want
Yeah.
that thing, because
Yeah.
that person could be fine. That person could be funny. That person could be awesome. That person
Yeah.
could. But if y'all not headed in the same direction,
Mhm.
it's gonna lead to a split.
Mhm.
It's gonna lead to a split.
It's got to
Y'all
be a
gotta know.
non-negotiable.
It's gotta be a
I'm
non-negotiable.
not compromising on the call of
Yeah.
God over my life. And it's no hate to you. Like, if
Yeah.
God's taking you somewhere else, amen, I'm happy for you. That just means it's not the same
Yeah.
way.
Now, when it gets real complicated is when you're 15 years in, and then they want to go somewhere where they did not agree on going in the beginning.
Mm.
That's when it gets hard. Then you're like, that's not what we signed up for,
Yeah.
and that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah. I think that kind of goes into the whole helper thing that you were talking about.
Yeah.
submission is a big topic of conversation. Like
Mhm.
everyone loves to talk about that. There's a lot of opinions. And you guys usually touch on it. Usually, like week 4, I think you somewhat get into it. But we had a question last week that we didn't get to, where someone asked, "How can I submit growing up in a tough and dominant environment? Like as a woman, how can I submit? It's not even about the man. It's like this is how I was raised." And so I was wondering, Pastor Liz, like maybe you can speak into that. We have this negative connotation towards submission,
Yeah.
but you put it so wonderful. Like we're a helper,
Yeah.
not a cook, not a maid, not a
Right.
slave. We're a helper to come alongside and build
Yeah.
something together.
Yeah.
But I think for a long time it's just been spoken of so negatively. So
Yeah.
what would you say to the woman on the other side of like, hey, I want to submit, but like my personality, it just
Yes.
makes it hard for
Oh
me
my
not
God.
to.
Yeah, so I think that was probably in the beginning of our marriage one of the hardest things, one of the most difficult things I had to deal with, which is crazy because my mom is like, I grew up in a home where my mother is very submissive. But I guess I lean more towards like, I'm like my dad. And so I was just very, like, my dad taught me to be independent. Like, I had businesses before I even met JJ. Like, I had a plan. I was like, I'm gonna buy a house. I don't need to wait till I have a husband to buy a house. Like,
Yeah.
super independent. And so it was really hard when I got into the relationship that I'm like, submit what? Like, it was
Yeah.
so hard because I'm like, I've been on this path and you're just coming with me.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I saw it. And it was really hard. And then something hit me when the Lord spoke to me and he was like, okay, so you picked JJ, right? I'm like, yes. Okay. So you picked JJ because you felt like you asked me, right? Yes. Okay. So I'm like, yes, God, I picked him because I'm following, like I didn't just get into a relationship with him. Like God told me he is the one for you. I'm like, okay, great. So we got into this relationship and he's like, okay, do you trust that JJ has a relationship with me? Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. Do you trust that I'm speaking to him? Yes. So then if you don't trust the decisions that he makes, I'm talking to him. You're basically not trusting
Mm.
me.
Right.
And so that's how I had to see it.
That's really
Like,
good.
God is speaking to him. And so, like, that's why he's saying, he talks constantly. He's like, well, pick the right person. He talked about it today. He's like, don't, you have a choice. Don't pick someone
That you don't
who's,
trust.
yeah, that you don't trust. Like, don't pick someone that's selfish. Like,
Right.
that's on you. Like, when we talk about it's not you, it's me, like, that's on you to pick the
Mm.
right person.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you pick them, then you picked them. So
Right.
now I don't want to say you stuck, but like just work on that, work on you. And so I constantly fought him on decisions that he was making. And finally, like God spoke to me and he's like, I honestly feel like I got to a place where I realized I actually had it easier because the Bible talks about it. Like he has to die.
Yeah.
Like, I just have to follow what he's saying. He has to die and die to himself. And so when I kept trusting the decisions that he was making
Mm-hmm.
and stopped fighting him on everything, does that mean that I just stay quiet? I'm like not
Right.
putting my input? No. Like that means I'm just like I tell him what I think, but then I allow him to make the decision and then I trust that God is speaking to him.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to pick the right person. And
Yeah.
if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I already picked them. Okay, well, then trust that God's going to work in your submission,
Right. Yeah.
that He's going to work through that. And so just keep doing that. And when I realized like he actually has it harder because he has to die, then I'm like, well, my job is easier. Like before, I had to do everything on my own. Talking about helper, like now that's a help because I don't have to worry. Like he's the one that has to answer to God if he
Yeah.
made the wrong decision. That's
Right.
scarier for me.
Yeah.
It's true.
And like that happened in our
Wait.
relationship, not to take up too much time, but I remember how I wanted to when we he got a job. We were youth pastors at the time, but then he also got a job at Southeastern University in Lakeland.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was my dream to live in this one town called Celebration.
Yeah.
And so it was like smack dab in the middle of like the two jobs. I'm like, this is perfect, babe. This makes perfect sense. We're in a financial position now where we can, buy this beautiful house. We toured it. We started picking out tiles and
She's always
countertops.
wanted a dream house. Dream house is like her thing.
Right.
Mhm.
I'm like, and this would be my dream house. He even like took me to the place to like pick all the finishings and stuff.
Mhm.
And then on the way home, he's like, babe, I really want to make you happy. I do. He's like, but I just don't feel like this is a good choice. And I'm like, but why? Like, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And he's like, because I just feel like God is going to call us to step on a faith. He's like, and I know that we're making a little bit more money now that we could afford this house, but I don't feel like this is what God's asking us to do. I think God's like, stay in the home that you are in, save your money, because I'm gonna ask you to step out in faith. And talking about Africa, I'm like, where are we going? Africa? Like, what's gonna happen? Which I was totally down for. I was like, okay, if that's what God's calling. And I really thought, I'm like, we're gonna end up on the mission field. Like that's
Yeah.
the only thing that makes sense in my mind. But we didn't. It was to start Journey Church. And so like, if it wasn't for him listening to God, even though what I was saying made more sense at the time, we wouldn't have started this church
Yeah,
because we went without a
exactly.
salary for an entire year.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have been able to do that. We would have been like, well, I guess we can't start a church because we don't have the finances to do it.
Right.
And we were able to do it because of the decision that he made and because I submitted to that.
That's really good. Every time we talk about that and we show that other aspect, I see the guys in the comments that are like, no, the husband's supposed to put his foot down and he's supposed to um, not, or it'll be like, oh, so I'm just supposed to let the wife get everything she wants, like interest. But being in your best interest doesn't always mean giving you what you want.
Yeah.
That's like sometimes being in your best interest is obeying the voice of God.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I don't want husbands to mishear me and go, all right, well, if I'm a good husband, I get to give my wife everything she wants. No, you want to give your wife everything she
Yeah.
wants.
Yeah.
But if something your wife wants is coming against what you really feel strongly is the will of God, if it's the written will of God, there's no question.
Yeah.
If your wife's asking you, if your wife is saying this is gonna make me happy, and it's against the written will of God, i.e., His word, there's no question. You got to follow the word.
Yeah.
But if it's against the voice of God that you're hearing, and it's not the written word, you pray through that. But you got to then say, no, I don't think this is where God wants our family to go.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean, like I said, you're giving her what she wants always.
Yeah.
It means you're always for her best interest.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
I love that.
One last takeaway from your message was that you said that marriage isn't happiness, it's holiness. But what does holiness practically look like in a marriage?
Sanctification. So holiness is through the process of sanctification. Sanctification is the process of fire. Fire is the process of refining. And so it really means that your spouse is there to refine you. So your spouse is God's answer to smoothing out your rough edges, to removing the impurities,
Making him more like him.
to making you more like Him.
Yeah.
Holiness is becoming like God, separate, set apart. And so God is holy. Holiness is to take on His nature. And so, God is using your spouse to shape you more into the image of His Son Jesus, which is just a great reminder. Like I joked about it in one of the sermons. I don't know which one they'll post, but it was like every time Liz gets on my nerves, I'm like, God is using her. God is using her to refine
Kept telling you to
me.
brush your teeth.
Right now, I am being refined
Please.
by the refiner's fire. And I just gotta remember that. Like, she's not annoying me. She's not bothering me. All those things can be true, but can also be she's refining me.
Yeah.
Right.
Can also be she's sanctifying me.
Yeah.
She's sanctifying me. Because I could fake it in front of these people for 40 minutes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I can't fake it at home.
Yeah.
100%.
She's with me.
Mm-hmm.
So if I ever preach something that I'm not living,
Yeah.
she'd be the first
Which I've
person.
never seen that.
Yeah.
Should be the first person to
Yeah.
be like, you know, and I'm grateful for that. And so yeah, she's making me more like Jesus every day. It just sometimes it hurts.
Yeah.
And it feels like all those things, disagreement. It feels like misunderstanding. It could feel like disrespect. It could feel like nagging. It could feel like a bunch of things. But you got to remind yourself, this is refining. This is good. This is what she wants me. God wants me to
Yeah.
grow. This is the one she picked for me.
Yeah.
He picked for me.
Yeah. I think, yeah, you said it. Anytime that you're like, telling me something, it's my thing is like, I get upset at the kids, or like I was saying earlier, I'm like, they're not listening. And he's like, but babe, this is, you got to sometimes let things go. Like my thing this past couple months is like not always being on them for something. And he's always like telling me, you got to let things go. And so that's refining me as a mom, as a person, is like not always everything has to be a certain way, but just like letting things go and giving grace. Like that's probably like my word of the year is like giving grace. But
Yeah.
that's through this relationship of him refining me, God refining me through him to make me holy, to making me more like him.
Yeah.
Because that's the theme of the year, is to follow him so that we can become more like him.
And to the person who thinks, well, my husband's not a pastor, my wife's not a pastor, and I was like, no offense to your husband or your wife, but there's this story of Balaam and the donkey in the Old Testament, where this might guess gonna offend somebody, but it's the story that came to my mind, where this prophet is riding a donkey, and the donkey is trying to give a message to Balaam, and he's not paying attention. So then the Lord opens up the mouth of the donkey, and this donkey starts speaking Hebrew to the prophet, and the prophet's like, "Oh, snap!" Like, okay. And so what I always tell people is, if God could speak through the mouth of a donkey, depending on the relationship, I might use another word for donkey.
Yeah.
And then I go, listen, God can speak through your spouse.
Yeah.
God can speak through your husband, your wife. And I'm not saying your spouse is whatever. Don't at me in the comments. I'm just saying you are limiting God if you think He can't use an imperfect spouse to make you perfect.
Yeah. Wow.
You've told us before at a staff chapel that Bible verse that says, "As iron sharpens iron, one sharpens another." So why are you surprised when it feels sharp? Like sharpening hurts. Sharpening is hard, but what happens after that? You're sharper. You're better. You're greater than when you were before.
Another example I use is when the Bible says crucify yourself. Do you remember when I did the illustration on staff? So I had a dream one time where I was being crucified on the cross. You know, it was a weird dream, but it was also the Lord was ministering to me. And so I had the hammer and the nail in my hand,
Yeah.
and I was nailing the feet. I was nailing my hands. And then after I nailed my feet and after I nailed my hand, there was this hand. And I was like, I couldn't finish it. Like I couldn't crucify myself because I only could get my feet and my hand.
Right.
And I was like, Lord, what about this hand? And He's like, that's where people come in.
So good.
That's where your brothers and your sisters in Christ. That's where your spouse. That's where your pastor. That's where your team. That's where your coworkers. That's where you need their help to finish the crucifixion process.
Yeah.
So it feels like that sometimes, but it's sanctification.
So good. Yeah. I think we have time for one listener question. Julian, do you want to pick which one we should talk about?
Yeah, sure. So I just wanted to pick the best one.
Why I vote the third one, but whatever you feel led to.
You said the third one.
Whatever you feel led to.
Is that what you said?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. I was feeling that way
Like,
too.
I don't want to tell you,
No, I was
but
feeling that way
okay.
too.
But
good,
I'm
good,
gonna
good,
tell
good,
you.
good.
For the listeners, someone sent in this question: how do I tell the difference between selfishness or priority/boundaries?
Oh, that's a great
one,
question,
yeah.
person. Whoever you are. Selfishness/priorities.
I think boundaries are like usually things that you set ahead of time. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're like, these are my boundaries. So, I mean, I feel like it would be clear if you see that that's a boundary line. Like, this is going to sound funny. It's not to do with like, this kind of relationship, but the way I think about boundaries is remember when my dad showed up to the house? My dad, when we moved into our first home that we bought, um, our kids were little, and one day in the afternoon, my dad was just outside mowing the lawn and like mowing my lawn. I know he's like, what? You have to meet my dad. He's a servant. He loves to serve, but he would do stuff like that because then he'd be like, "Oh, I'm here. Look, I'm mowing your grass. Can I hang out with the kids now?"
Aw.
But we had a boundary where we had like a set day of the week for him to see the kids so that he could see the kids. But he would just sometimes show up during the week because they were little. He wanted to see them. He's grandpa. And so that was a boundary where like, well, you can't just be randomly showing up because he could be at home in his underwear. And so that's not selfish. Like we have this boundary, make sure that you don't show up unannounced. But that was because we had set the boundary that we knew. So I feel like with boundaries, like if you set them ahead of time, then you could tell the difference between, okay, this is a boundary and this is you just being selfish and not allowing me to see the kids. I mean,
Yeah, this is a great question. That's a really good point too, because I think the boundaries and selfishness. So boundaries are not designed to keep people out.
yeah.
Boundaries are actually ways that I
Right.
can let people in.
Mm-hmm.
A boundary is a tool to have a relationship.
Right.
Say, hey, I want you around,
Right.
but in order for us to have a healthy relationship, boundary.
Right.
So it's not selfishness gets you out of a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So you're being selfish if you are removing yourself from a relationship,
Yeah.
trying to do it your own for you.
Yeah.
Boundary is we can have a relationship,
With these
but it
boundaries.
needs to be with these boundaries.
Good.
You can't come over every day.
Yeah.
You can come over once a week.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a boundary. It's a way to have a relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're removing it completely, then it's completely selfish.
Yeah.
As far as priorities are concerned, again, I would ask, are you single or are you married? Right? Because if you're married, your spouse becomes your priority.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's wild. Your spouse becomes your priority. And so I would think the only time you would violate that would be if you are somehow causing them to be a priority somehow violates God's law. So if you putting them first meant that you are somehow like harming yourself like physically,
Yeah.
like if there's something your spouse is asking you to do and it physically harms your body, you're like, no, I'm called to steward my body,
Yeah.
right? So I can't do that. Or if they ask you to do something that goes, like I said, against God's word or hurts another person, then I wouldn't do that. So yeah, when you're single, it's a whole different game. But yeah, so boundaries, my answer. Difference between selfishness and boundaries is, does it push relationship away? Does it let relationship in?
Yeah.
And then priorities. If you're married, your spouse really does become your priority, and you're like, well, it sounds like you lose yourself when you get married, a little bit. You know who you are, but you're constantly laying that down.
Right.
It's a beautiful, beautiful surrender. But yeah, so don't always. Your priority should always be God first,
Mhm.
spouse second, kids third. So as long as God is first, if your spouse is asking you to do something that takes God out of first,
Mm.
then that's a bad priority. And if you are prioritizing something above God or your spouse, that's selfish. That makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Awesome. Well, thank you, Pastor JJ and
Yeah.
Pastor Liz and Julian, for week 2 of our After
Let's
Talk
go.
podcast. What can we expect for week 3 of It's Not You, It's Me?
Which is going to be great. We actually have a guest speaker
Okay.
who will be here on the podcast as well. A good friend of mine, Pastor Noah Herron, best-selling author, amazing pastor of a church out in Nashville called Way Church. He's got his own podcast called the Way Deeper Podcast, which is blowing up as well. But just a good dude. But we'll be here too.
Yeah.
We'll be here too with him, and so it'll be a packed house next week's podcast.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you guys join us next week for week 3. Again, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single week, and we can keep loving on you, pouring in you, and for you to be a permanent part of the Journey Church family. Comment down below what ministered to you, and we'll see you guys next time.
See ya.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.